Hey everyone, this week we're going to do a video on rConfig v5, the new release 5.1.5. I'm going to show you some of the new cool features there. Short video today, but just to give you an update on some of the cool new things that we've introduced. So let's take a quick look at the release notes on our dashboard and take a peek at some of the items we're going to go through. So if I run into the dashboard, this section is restricted to subscribers only, but at least you'll be able to see some of the features we're releasing this week. We're going to go through our new backup cleanup strategy. We're going to talk about the new filter for device status on the devices page, multiple AD groups for LDAP, and our brand new queuing system, which we're really excited about. So let's get straight into it. Before I do, just going to jump over to the documentation and say, any of the updates that we've done, the documents are continually updated, right? So, if you have any questions after the video or anything like that, run through the docs real quick for any section or any feature that you're interested in, and then obviously reach out to support if you have a support agreement for V5. Cool. Let's look at some of the features. So here's our V5 dashboard, and the first thing we're going to look at is a very straightforward but much desired feature, and that is the ability to feature on device status in the devices page. So if I go to device management and devices, you can see 3 new buttons here. Quite simply, the first button is show me all devices. The second button is filter by only devices that are in an up status, and the last button is show me all devices that are in a down status. Okay. Pagination applies, so if you have more than 10 devices, the filter will only apply to what's on the screen. So if you've got 100 devices but you're only showing 10, the filter will only apply to the 10 on the screen. So you might need to increase your pagination value if you need to filter on a greater number of devices. Okay, that's the first feature. Nice and easy, very useful. The second one was an ask from a client to say, could we, I'm going to jump down to settings and LDAP, could we support multiple authorized groups in LDAP? So the answer is now yes, we can. You need to use the DN, distinguished name, for each of the authorized groups that you want to put into rConfig. Separate those with a semicolon and a space, and you can put in as many groups as you need to. Okay, that's the second feature. Third feature, so backups have been in rConfig, since day one. Previously there was the ability to purge backups. Now we're saying clean backups. The underlying framework for this has a new clean backup strategy. Let me talk about what that is in a second. So at the moment you can run a backup, it'll go to the queue, no problem there. You can schedule backups. You should be comfortable with this. These are system backups. They'll back up your database, all of your device configuration files, the application itself, right? Obviously, any of you I've spoken to, I always insist that you get a backup running right away. But these backups can grow substantially. So you want a strategy to purge, remove, clean old backups, right? You can do that manually from here. If you hit this button and click proceed, it will invoke the cleanup strategy. Okay, and I'm going to show you that in just a sec. That'll go to the queuing system. That'll clean up any backups per your cleanup strategy, and that'll be fine. You can also run that as a scheduled task. If I just go into schedule tasks here, there's a clean system backups. There's no options here. You just set the timer. Once a week should be sufficient. Once a day, once a month, it's really up to you. It'll just run the clean backup strategy. Okay, we're going to look at that right now. So the clean backup strategy is in settings, backup strategy. And basically, there's a set of options that are enumerated in order to determine which backups can be removed from the disk. Okay, so basically, just to talk through it real quickly, all backups will be kept for 7. So these are the values here, right? The first item, keep all backups for X number of days. So if you have 14 days of backups and you invoke the clean backup strategy, and this is configured for 7, the previous 7 days are going to be removed, except when you want to keep daily backups for X number of days, right? So then the 14 won't be removed. If you have 24 will be removed. I hope this is making sense. You want to keep weekly backups for 8 weeks. That means if you've got 10 weeks of backups, at least one backup will be kept for the last 8 weeks, and everything pre the previous, we'll say 8 to 10 weeks will be removed, except where you have a monthly backup set. So when we're into kind of 4 months of 16 weeks, so you can start to see you'll have a set of backups kept for a period of time from a yearly, monthly, weekly, daily, and day strategy. The newest backup is never deleted, and there's a default setting: delete the oldest backups when more than X megabytes on the disk is consumed. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Any questions on it, let me know via support channels for users that have support. Okay, so the last one we're going to touch on real quick is the new queuing system. Now, you know, to be honest, the queuing system is a back-end method of managing jobs that are sent through rConfig. So generally, you know, you won't have to do much with it. But the new queuing system is useful for troubleshooting failed jobs, right? So previously, you'd have set a scheduled task, let's say download by device, and then you'll pick a number of devices and you'll set a, you know, twice a day, once a day, whatever it is, and then you'll click save, right? And what happens is once a day at that time, that job is picked up, sent to the queuing system, and processed out of band from the main application. That's useful because it means it's non-blocking. However, all devices were sent in as one job, enumerated first in, first out, which meant that in this case, if device 3 had any issues, connectivity issues, authentication issues, it could either slow down the entire job or block the entire job, or even sometimes faithfully fail the entire job, right? So now what happens, and I'll demonstrate it in a second, on the new queuing system, all devices, so let's say you pick a category and you've got 100 devices in this category, that goes into the queuing system as a batch. Every single device is sent into the queuing system separately as a job. All of those jobs are processed on a first in, first out basis, but it's non-blocking, which means that if one of those jobs fails, that's fine. The next job in the queue just picks up and starts to work. Okay, let me show you how it works. Go into Queue Manager, and batches is where you see the jobs. You can see if you have been run here and if you have been failed. Okay, so let's look at a successful batch. A successful batch. I should also mention too, we have a separate queue now as well for device downloads, backups, and let me just run back to the dashboard here real quick. Backups, emails, things like that are sent into the default queue. All device downloads are sent into the download queue. Last queue is a queue last resort, currently isn't used. So what happens is when one of these jobs runs, it goes in as a batch, and the batch of jobs is then sent to the queue. Let's have a look at the queue. We don't have any. Actually, let me just run one here. So if I run this one, proceed. So that then goes to the queue. We'll see our new batch come in. That's pending. There's 7, and I know that this is going to end up like this one right here, fit with a failure. And this is good because we can show you a failure for demonstration purposes. Takes a minute. What I am looking at here is individual jobs go into the pending job queue, and when they're completed, they go into the completed jobs queue. Now, as I said, this means that every device gets its own job in the queue, which is extraordinarily powerful in terms of performance, and it's non-blocking, right? But you know, we can see one failed, right? And if we look at the one that failed autonomously on its own, completely on its own, you know, and then at this point, it's probably not. In fact, I know this device doesn't exist, this IP address. I just know it does. But you know, for you, it could be a connectivity issue, such as this one here. It could be an authentication. You just have to investigate, you know, through rConfig standard troubleshooting practices, as I'm bringing up here in the documentation, as to why that device has failed. Any of my customers that have worked with me on this in the past know how to do this really well. But what it does mean is that the entire batch is successful except for the ones that are not, right? And it doesn't slow down the batch or anything like that. So hope that makes sense. Much more efficient, much more performant, and it should allow for rConfig to scale much more as well. Okay. Do keep an eye on the batches, do keep an eye on failures on emails as they come out to you, and let me know your feedback. Okay, so there are 4 main features of our 5.1.5. We're getting straight into 5.1.6, so some cool new stuff coming there as well. And hope to talk to you again soon. Thanks for joining in.